When I died in a shipwreck at 7, I thought my parents would save me. Instead, they stole my soul tag, gave it to my adopted sister, and left me on the train bound for hell. With no name, no family, and no proof of who I was, I should have disappeared. But Lucifer, the feared king of hell, took me in and raised me as his daughter. 10 years later, I became Princess Raven of the underworld. Then my parents came crawling back, begging me to save them. This time, hell would judge them for everything they did to me. Freezing seawater seeped through the gaps of the suitcase and bit into my skin.
I was curled inside the dark, cramped box, my hands and feet long since numb. Heavy thuds came from above. The whole ship was tilting violently, metal groaning and tearing, as if some giant beast were dragging it into the sea. 3 hours ago, my father, Harold, and my mother, Yvonne, had put me in here themselves. They crouched in front of me, their faces serious, their voices deliberately gentle.
Evie, be good. Let's play hide and seek.
No matter what sound you hear, you are not allowed to come out. No matter who calls you, don't make a sound, understand?
I nodded hard. I was only 7. I thought if I was obedient enough, they would come back for me, but they never came. Only the water did. By the time I finally forced the zipper open and crawled out, the room was empty. The door had been locked from the outside. I clawed at the gap and screamed until my fingernails tore back, and blood mixed into the rising water.
Mom! Open the door! Evie doesn't want to play anymore!
No one answered. Just before the water swallowed me, I pressed my eye to the peephole and saw 3 figures at the end of the hall. Dad, Mom, and Jasmine, their adopted daughter. They were shielding her on both sides as they ran toward the emergency exit. Jasmine was wearing her pink princess dress and clutching her favorite doll. Around her wrist was a silver chain glowing faintly in the darkness. It was my soul tag. Everyone is born with one. It records your name, your bloodline, your deeds in life, and where you are meant to go after death. While you are alive, it is only a charm. Once you die, it becomes the only proof that can get you into heaven. The ghost train reads the tag. It does not care about your face. It does not care how hard you cry. That was when I finally understood. They had not forgotten me. They had locked me inside a sinking ship and handed my afterlife to Jasmine. What they did not know was that the emergency route had already been flooded and torn apart, even though they escaped before me. They never made it out alive either. When I opened my eyes again, I was sitting on a long black train. It was cold and dark, and through the crowd of the dead, I spotted that same flash of pink. The car was packed with people from the shipwreck, all of them soaking wet and deathly pale. Some were sobbing over missing limbs. Others were calling out for family they would never find. The air smelled of seawater and deathly cold. An announcement crackled overhead.
Heaven's reception is approaching. All souls, please have your soul tag ready for verification. Those with a valid soul tag may exit and enter heaven. Those without one must remain on board. Your next stop will be the underworld for judgment. Anyone who attempts to force their way through the gate will be detained and sent to hell for trial.
I looked down at my wrist. There was nothing there. The train came to a stop, and white light poured through the windows, soft and endless. The souls in the car surged toward the doors. Through the crowd, I saw that flash of pink again. Jasmine was in Mom's arms, clean as if the shipwreck had never touched her. Dad stood in front of them, shoving back the crowd to protect her. She still had her doll. She still had my soul tag. The light swept over her, and a warm chime sounded.
Evie Hayes, identity confirmed. Welcome to heaven.
My whole body went stiff. She wasn't Evie. I was. I scrambled up from the floor and pushed through the freezing crowd, reaching for them as I cried out.
Dad! Mom! I'm here! I'm here, Evie!
Harold went rigid. Then he turned. When he saw me, bloody-faced, soaked through, there was no relief in his eyes, no joy. not even shock that his daughter was still there, only disgust, panic, and the look of a man who had just been caught. The train conductor walked over with his roster. His gaze moved from the soul tag on Jasmine's wrist to me, trembling on the floor.
Hold on. This child says she is Evie Hayes, but Evie Hayes' soul tag is on another child's wrist. You two are her parents. Which one is your daughter?
The entire car fell silent. I held out my small, wounded hands and pointed at Harold and Yvonne, crying so hard I could barely breathe.
Uncle, I'm Evie. My soul tag is on my sister. Mom and Dad locked me in the room. They left without me.
Harold cut me off before I could finish. He pulled Jasmine in front of him and held her close, as if I were the one trying to hurt her.
This is the only daughter Yvonne and I have. I don't know where that filthy little brat came from, but she's is not a Hayes.
Something inside me snapped. The look on his face was the same as the one he had worn that night on the ship. Cold, crushing, and absolute. Yvonne would not meet my eyes, but she pulled Jasmine closer and raised her voice.
That's right. Jasmine has always been terrified of the dark. Of course she has a soul tag.
You little liar. Stop trying to steal my daughter's place in heaven!
She said it as if Jasmine being afraid of the dark explained everything, as if I had not been locked in a dark, flooding cabin. As if my fear did not count, the conductor looked at them, then at me. Whatever doubt had been in his eyes was gone.
So you're a little fraud, no soul tag, trying to sneak into heaven under someone else's name.
Whispers spread through the car.
Lying at that age. No wonder she can't get in. Look at her. You can tell she's trouble.
I stopped crying. I wiped the blood and tears from my face with my sleeve and looked across the crowd at the three of them. Even after death, a heart can still break. Harold's face twisted with anger. He stood behind the gate's barrier of white light and pointed at me.
Stop looking at me like that! You're the one who wanted to play hide and seek. You climbed into that suitcase yourself and refused to come out. Did we force you? You lost your soul tag because of your own stupidity. Don't you dare blame us.
I stood there and said nothing. In his version, even my death was my own fault. But he was the one who put me in that suitcase. He was the one who locked the door from the outside. He remembered to bring Jasmine's doll. He just left me behind. Yvonne rushed to cut me off before I could say anything.
Don't let this little liar hold everyone up.
Evie, no. Sweetheart, just stay on the train like a good girl. Get off at the next stop. Your father and I will be waiting for you there.
She was still trying to trick me, like I was a baby, but I was not going to believe her again.
Heaven's Gate is closing. Souls without a soul tag must remain on board. Souls whose identities cannot be verified will be processed as unnamed wanderers.
Jasmine peeked at me from Mom's arms. The soul tag on her wrist still glowed, making her look like she really had been chosen. I had no parents, no tag, and no one willing to say who I was. The train let out a long, mournful cry, and the black doors slammed shut. The white light shrank into the distance. Dad, Mom, and Jasmine faded into the glow, until there was nothing left. Then the train moved again, rushing into the dark. The cold deepened, pressing in from every side. I wrapped my arms around myself and held on tight, whispering the same words over and over.
Don't be scared. Evie, don't be scared. You're already 7. You're basically a grown-up now.
I didn't know yet that the next stop was not where my parents would be waiting. It was hell. The train screeched to a stop. The doors flew open, and the souls around me screamed and scattered in every direction. My legs had gone stiff from being curled up in the suitcase for so long. Someone crashed into me in the chaos, and I tumbled straight out of the high train car. I hit the black stone floor hard. Pain shot through my knees as they split open against the ground. Before I could even crawl up, the light above me disappeared. A massive 3-headed demon loomed over me, its huge blood-red eyes fixed on my face. It opened one of its mouths, revealing rows of hooked teeth, and lunged straight at my throat. The demons around us burst into cruel laughter. I was only 7. Dying once had not made me any braver. Faced with a monster like that, all I could do was curl into a ball, squeeze my eyes shut, and cry out the only names I still knew.
Dad! Mom! Please help me!
But I knew they would not come. They were already on their way to heaven. They would not turn back from me. The demon's fangs were almost at my throat. Then the air tore open, a force so violent, it seemed to split the darkness apart, slammed into the 3-headed demon. It flew backward hundreds of feet without even having time to scream. The demons who had been laughing a moment ago went deathly silent. One by one, they dropped to their knees, their faces pale with terror. Black sparks drifted down like ash. Through the falling embers, a pair of tall black boots came to a stop in front of me. I rubbed the blood from my eyes and looked up. The man standing over me was very tall, dressed in a long black coat that seemed to drink in the light around him. His face was striking, almost too perfect, but there was nothing gentle in it. His eyes were gold like molten metal, cold and violent, as if one glance from him could burn a soul down to ash. This was Lucifer, the Lord of Hell. A guard nearby saw me staring and hissed under his breath,
"Bow your head. Show some respect to Lord Lucifer. Do you want to be skinned alive?"
I froze. I did not know how to bow. I did not know the rules of hell. I only knew that everyone around me was on their knees, trembling so hard they barely dared to breathe. Lucifer looked down at me, the black flames across the hall bent, and swayed with his breathing, as if the whole place belonged to him down to the last spark. His shadow fell over me, heavy and suffocating, and for a moment I could not tell whether the cold came from the stone beneath me or from him. Then he reached out one pale hand. A flicker of deep blue fire danced at his fingertip. It was small, no bigger than a candle flame, but the demons around us all lowered their heads even further, as if that tiny flame were more terrifying than the 3-headed beast from before. Lucifer brought it slowly toward my forehead.
A stray child with no soul tag?
His voice was low and cold, like something rising from the deepest part of the earth.
Hell is not a shelter for lost little things.
The demons around us smiled. They all knew how Lucifer treated weak, troublesome souls. A nameless ghost with no soul tag, no family, and no one to claim her, was nothing more than a problem to be erased. I stared at the blue flame, moving closer. My legs would not move. My hands were shaking so badly. I could not even crawl away. I wanted to beg, but my throat was tight, and the only words I knew had already failed me. Lucifer's fingertip finally touched my forehead. His golden eyes flashed, cold and merciless. Then his hand pressed down. I did not disappear. The moment the fire touched me, it turned warm. I blinked. The tall man in black was still standing over me, but something about him did not feel dangerous in the same way Harold did. Harold's eyes were always sharp and calculating, as if he had already decided what I was worth and found me disappointing. This man's eyes were cold, but the cruelty in them was not aimed at me. I was only 7. I did not know what the King of Hell was. I only knew that I did not want to be left behind again. In front of every stunned demon in the hall, I crawled forward and wrapped both arms around his leg. I buried my face in his black coat, smearing blood and tears across the fabric, and cried in a small, shaking voice.
Dad, I got lost. It was so dark. They put me in a box. I was so scared.
That one word froze the entire hall. Dad, every judge, every demon, even the 3-headed hound that had tried to eat me, dropped to its knees at once. Faces went white. No one dared to breathe too loudly. A guard slammed his forehead to the ground, his voice shaking so hard the words nearly broke apart.
Your Majesty! Your Majesty! Forgive her! The child is terrified and out of her mind! We'll drag her away at once!
The judges had already closed their eyes, bracing for the whole hall to be burned to ash. After all, this was Lucifer, the most feared being in any realm, and a 7-year-old stray ghost with no soul tag had just clung to his leg and called him Dad in front of everyone. Lucifer's entire body went stiff. His golden eyes stayed fixed on me, dark and unreadable. But I did not let go. I only sniffled, lifted my bloody gap-toothed face, and gave him the most hopeful smile I had left. No one expected what happened next. Lucifer did not destroy me. Instead, he picked me up with both hands, stiff and awkward, the way someone might pick up a soaked kitten. He held me like he had no idea what to do with something so small, but for some reason, he did not put me down. When I woke up again, I was lying in a small bed. It was warm and soft, so soft that I pressed my cheek into the pillow without thinking. Since Jasmine moved into our house, I had slept on the floor every night. She said she was scared to sleep alone, but she also refused to share a room with me. So the bed became hers, and the floor became mine. Then something cold brushed my cheek. I flinched back on instinct and hit my head against the wall. But the pain never came. A wide hand caught the back of my head just in time. Lucifer sat beside the bed, his expression flat, his hand still holding me steady as if keeping a child from hurting herself was the most irritating task in all of hell.
Who are you? Why can't the Mirror of Re-Nation find your name?
His voice was low and steady, but underneath it was something unsettled, something he probably had not noticed himself. I bit my lip and clutched the blanket. In the Hayes house, whenever an adult started asking questions, it usually meant they had already decided I was guilty. The questions were only there to make the punishment sound fair. My eyes filled with tears before I could stop them. Lucifer went still, for one terrifying second. I thought he was angry. Then he frowned, reached out with visible uncertainty, and used the hem of his black coat to wipe my face. His movements were rough but careful.
Fine. I won't ask. Just stop crying.
I looked at him. No one had ever stopped asking because I cried. No one had ever looked uncomfortable because my tears scared them. Something inside me moved before I could think. I threw my arms around his neck and shouted as loudly as I could.
Dad!
Lucifer jerked back as if the word had burned him. He pulled my arms loose, stood up, and walked straight out of the room. Panic hit me at once. I thought he was leaving me too. I did not stop to find my shoes. I scrambled out of bed and ran after him barefoot, crying so hard I could barely see.
Dad, don't go! I'll be good! I won't cry anymore! Please don't lock the door!
Lucifer stopped in the hallway. For a long moment, he did not turn around. Then he said through clenched teeth,
I was getting water.
I froze, still crying. He glanced back at my bare feet, and his face darkened even more.
And now I have to keep a suicidal little idiot from freezing her feet off.
That night, the King of Hell gained a shadow he could not shake. I became Lucifer's shadow when he held court. I crouched behind the throne. When he made his rounds through hell, I hid behind his coat and followed wherever he went. I also brought every habit I had learned in the Hayes house with me. Be useful, be quiet, stay out of the way, never become a burden. Every morning at 3, I would sneak out to the asphodel garden and collect dew from the asphodel flowers 1 drop at a time. Then I would bring it back and try to brew tea for him. At night, I would drag over a basin of lethe water, as heavy as my small arms could manage, and kneel down to wash his feet. Lethe water was corrosive. After a few months, my hands were covered in raw, swollen patches. Some places had cracked open, but I still kept scrubbing, afraid that if I stopped, I would stop being useful. One evening, Lucifer looked down at my ruined little hands, still working as if I could not feel pain. Something dark shifted in his golden eyes. He pulled his foot back.
Enough!
His voice was quiet, but sharp enough to make every judge in the hall lower their head.
I am the King of Hell. I do not need a 7-year-old child waiting on me. Stop doing this.
I looked up at him, my eyes filling at once.
Did I do something wrong?
Lucifer's brows tightened. I clutched the wet cloth in my hands and tried not to cry too loudly.
Mom always said children who don't serve their parents aren't good children. Dad said I shouldn't be lazy, and that I should take care of the family. If I stop being good, will you play hide and geek again and lock me somewhere?
The hall went silent. Lucifer's hand stopped above the Book of Life and Death. The judges looked away. Even the demons who usually enjoyed watching punishments lowered their eyes, as if they could not bear to hear a child say those words so calmly. For a long time, Lucifer said nothing. Then he reached out and placed one large hand on top of my head. His touch was still stiff, but it did not hurt.
Nothing those two idiots from the Hayes family taught you applies here.
I blinked up at him.
You are staying with me now. From this day on, I will teach you the rules myself.
What rules?
Lucifer looked at my bandaged hands, then back at my face.
Rule 1. My daughter does not have to earn a place in my house.
With Lucifer's shamelessly biased indulgence, and the rest of hell following his lead, I became Princess Raven of the underworld. In a realm without sunsets, On's slight frown from me was enough to put everyone on alert. Time passed in a blur, and 10 years went by. Then came All Souls' Night, the one night each year when the gates of hell opened wide. Souls poured into the receiving station in waves. I stood on the bank of the river Lethe with nothing better to do, helping Lady Lethe stir a pot of softly glowing blue Lethe brew. As I lifted the ladle, a familiar voice cut through the noise of the new arrivals, a voice I had not heard in 10 years, but still recognized in my bones.
Get your hands off me! You filthy guards, let go! I'm a heaven-registered lady! My husband is Harold Hames, a respected businessman. How dare you make us stand with Thason people?
This is clearly a system error. We demand to speak to whoever is in charge. My daughter Jasmine went to heaven with her soul tag. The Hayes family does not belong in a place like this. The ladle stopped in my hand!
For one moment, I was no longer standing by the river Lethe. I was back inside that suitcase, with freezing water rising around my neck and no air left to breathe. I was back on that black train, covered in blood. While everyone called me a liar, 10 years had passed. It still hit the same. I set the ladle down and turned to leave. I was heading for Lucifer's hole. I wanted nothing to do with them. But before I could take more than a few steps, someone grabbed my wrist from
Evie!
behind. Her voice cracked, full of shock and relief. That sounded almost real.
Oh, thank God I finally found you!
She reached for me as if she had the right to hold me, her eyes wide and wet with something that looked like joy, but wasn't.
I've been sick with worry for 10 years. I thought about you every single day. Tell these guards who we are. Tell them to send us back to heaven.
I looked down at her hand on my wrist. Then I pulled myself free. I did not yell. I did not cry. I did not even give her the satisfaction of seeing me shake.
You have the wrong person.
When I said, "You have the wrong person," the joy on Yvonne's face froze. Her hand was still on my wrist, her nails pressing into my skin. Then the tears came right on cue, as if she were the one who had been wronged.
Evie, how can you speak to your mother like that? I've been looking for you for years. I couldn't sleep because I kept thinking about you. Is this how you repay me?
I looked down at her hand and pulled my wrist free. I don't have a mother. The souls waiting in line nearby all turned to look. The wind coming off the river Lethe was already cold, but their stares made it feel even colder. Harold pushed through from behind. He steadied Jasmine first, then draped his coat over her shoulders, gentle as if even the air might hurt her. Then he turned to me, and his face went dark.
You ungrateful little brat. You grow up, get yourself some pretty clothes, and suddenly you think you can pretend you don't know us?
He raised his hand and slapped me. The sound cracked across the riverbank. Everyone went silent. My face snapped to the side. Blood filled my mouth. For a moment, I was back in the Hayes living room. Back to being the child who got hit no matter what she did. Jasmine's eyes turned red at once. She reached out and lightly touched Harold's sleeve.
Dad, please don't hit her. She's been in hell for so long. The demons must have influenced her. I don't blame her for refusing to recognize us.
That only made Harold angrier. He turned back and pointed at me.
Look at how thoughtful your sister is! She gave up her peaceful life in heaven and came all the way to this filthy place to find you. And you can't even call us Mom and Dad.
I wiped the blood from my lip and kept my voice quiet.
I told you. I don't know who you are.
The moment I said I did not know them, Yvonne seemed to fall apart completely. She lunged at me and grabbed for my shoulders.
You don't know me! I carried you for 9 months! When you were sick as a little girl, I was the one sitting by your bed all night. How can you be this heartless, Evie?
She wept with such theatrical misery that the newly arrived souls nearby began to murmur among themselves. Some called me cold-blooded. Others said anyone who worked for hell had to be rotten. I heard every word and felt almost nothing. There was a time when being misunderstood terrified me, but the first thing Lucifer taught me was to never let strangers decide what I was. Harold, though, knew exactly how to use a crowd. He seized me by the hair and dragged me to the center of New Soul Square, forcing everyone to look.
Take a good look, all of you. This is the devoted daughter I raised for 7 years.
We gave her everything, and she repaid us with a poisonous heart.
She refuses to recognize her own parents and spent her whole childhood plotting against her sister.
Jasmine buried herself in Yvonne's arms, tears trembling on her lashes. Her voice was soft, but just loud enough for everyone around her to hear.
Father, please stop. She's Lady Raven now. We can't afford to make an enemy of her.
That one sentence turned every pair of eyes toward me. A few people noticed the black flame insignia at my waist, and the mood shifted.
So she has rank in hell. No wonder she's acting like this. She won't even acknowledge her own
Harold
parents.
looked like a man who had just found the winning card. He let out a cold laugh.
Lady Raven, please. She's a ghost with no soul tag. A stray nobody picked up in hell who now thinks she's someone important?
Then he raised his hand to slap me. The blow never landed. Black flames erupted across the sky above the square without warning. There was a deafening crack, and Harold was slammed to his knees on the iron ground by the shockwave. Yvonne screamed and pulled Jasmine close, but the force pressed them both down all the same. A tall figure stepped in front of me. I looked up and went completely still. It was Lucifer, but he had clearly come straight from putting down the rebellion in the deepest layer. His black coat was torn to shreds, caked with dry demon blood and underworld grime. He looked nothing like the sovereign of hell. He looked like a ruthless brawler who had just crawled out of the pit. But the moment I recognized him, something in my chest that had been wound painfully tight finally loosened. Lucifer did not turn around. His voice was cold enough to freeze the square.
Think you can lay a finger on her?